Thank you for joining us today. I'm coming to you live from LA, where we just survived a 3-day rain apocalypse. Still standing, still going strong, which is great. Katie and I are standing between you and an awesome roster of speakers, and a big thank you to that group for joining us today. So I'm going to keep this brief. As you may have seen in your inbox, today marks the launch of our event maturity model. Katie's going to walk you through the model in just a moment, but before we get there, I want to answer one question, which is always a great question to start with. And that question is why? Why did we create this? There are a ton of paths you can take to land the CMO role. Whether you come from a traditional marketing function like demand generation, content, product marketing, brand, PR, or communications, seems like there are numerous well-worn paths to the top. What's interesting is that historically, event marketing has been left out of that equation. VML Intelligence recently put out a report that called 2024 the year of emotioneering. This report highlighted that people are feeling burnt out, they're feeling disconnected, they're feeling jaded, and 77% of the respondents to that report said they just wanted to feel something, to feel anything, just to feel alive. So the report notes that companies and brands that cater to that emotional need, what they call emotioneering, will win. That idea of emotioneering is what I think event marketers and the folks on this digital event today have been excelling at for decades. It's a function that makes people feel. It crafts new ways for customers to connect with companies and partners that mean the most to them. And it's important today more than ever, as events are the real strength of many marketing programs. But as I'm sure we all know, emotional connection is really hard to measure. It's not a language that go-to-market leaders speak. And that forms the fundamental disconnect between event leaders and their revenue teams. And so to us, it forms a disconnect between event professionals and the C-suite. It's a lack of the ability to communicate event success and event value in a way that translates to broader revenue goals. So that brings us to today. The event maturity model is designed to create that shared language. It's designed to open channels of communication between event teams and revenue leadership. It frames event success, the success we're all going for every day, around goals and metrics that translate across the business, not just in terms the event team understands. So we really hope this model will start a conversation. We hope it'll get revenue leaders to finally pay attention to events and their impact. And if we can't tie emotion directly to money, then let's tie the dollars back to events. So with those very lofty goals in mind, I'm going to pass the mic to our Director of Product Marketing, Katie Goland. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's been so fun working on this new framework together. It's really been months in the making, and what better way to launch something new than at an event? We hope it spurs conversations and can be a tool to unlock opportunities to grow your events. Now, before we dive in, I'd love to expand a little bit more on why we created it. If you could go to the next slide. As Chris mentioned, it's clear that while event leaders understand the value of their event strategy, there's not always clear alignment across marketing, sales, and the overall business objectives. In that it's a clear opportunity to think about the way we measure the ROI of events, making sure that this ROI can be laddered back up to the overall business objectives. And also, as you add more events to your event strategy, are you thinking about how you use registration and attendee insights to maximize your ROI story? So our 3 key goals for this model are to 1, create better alignment across marketing, sales, and the business. 2, help event leaders get a seat at the revenue table by shifting the way we think about event-driven revenue. And 3, develop a tangible framework to mature your event strategy. So I'd love to take a quick poll on how this group currently measures the ROI of their event strategy. If you mind going to the next slide, you'll see the question, how do you measure event ROI? On the right side of your screen, you'll see a poll with this question. If you could go ahead and select the answer that resonates most with you, and it's multi-select, so feel free to answer more than one. A, ticket sales and sponsorship dollars. B, new business won from attendees that come to your events. C, customer upsells, retention, and renewals. Or D, other. And if you're putting D, other, please drop in the chat what that other is. We'd love to hear from you. While we gather the results of the poll, I'll dive into how we've been looking at ROI, which is a key component of the model. All right, we're commonly seeing 3 key buckets emerge as we look at how event leaders are measuring the return on investment from their events. The first is event-specific revenue. This looks like total ticket sales, sponsorship revenue, total donations, if potentially that's if you're a nonprofit organization. That equation could look something like the total revenue from the event minus the total dollar amount you spent on the event. The next two columns incorporate business-focused metrics into your ROI measurement. How are you helping to drive your overall business goals forward? Depending on the goal of your event, it could be focused on winning new business or growing and retaining current business, or maybe a combination of the both. Depending on your industry and how you measure new business, you could be looking at leads, pipeline, bookings, memberships, or maybe new students driven directly from attendees that came to your event. The key goal here, though, is measuring your event's influence on new business for your organization. On the customer growth and retention side, you'd be incorporating goals and measurements around customer expansion, retention, product adoption, if you're launching a new product, or overall happiness of the customers who attend your event, which could look like measuring Net Promoter Score or NPS. Chris, I know this topic has come up quite a bit during our discovery sessions. I'm curious about your take on where you see the industry swaying in terms of measuring ROI.
Katie, I think it's been a really interesting conversation. I think what I've noticed in my conversations with customers is that really there's really no one clear answer from the folks that think about ROI. I think that's probably reflected in the results from the poll today. I think it also depends on the kind of business you're in and the maturity of that business and the goals of the business. There are some folks probably who are on this digital event who work at businesses where the event is the business. And that's day in, day out what the business thinks about and is focused on. And in that case, you've got a really clear seat at the table and you know exactly what it takes to be successful. In other cases, I guess that I'm guessing people on this digital event are in businesses where events are a way of achieving other business objectives. And so in those cases, I think you start to see a little more nuance around how you calculate ROI. Even the question of what you're going to invest in your events program, looking back at last year, thinking about increasing investment or decreasing investment is a question that doesn't usually have a black and white answer. And so my take on this is that there are a variety of different answers to it. And I think over the course of this digital event and also in working with the model, we're going to provide different answers that you can use to articulate the value of your events back to the rest of the business.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, now that we're seeing the results come through, looks like split about 33% ticket sales, 31% new business, 23% customer upsells, and 12% other, which I'm really interested in digging into that other category and seeing how else organizations are measuring the ROI. But I'm really clear that we're seeing kind of a lot majority within bucket one, event specific revenue. And then we're seeing second place is really in that new business, which is, it makes sense. And I think part of why we developed this model is to start thinking about that shift of event specific revenue is so important to measure, right? We have to know how many people are coming to the event. What is that direct attribution revenue coming from your event? But if we're not really looking at the new business or customer growth and retention, really how we're moving the business forward, we might be not really painting the full picture of our revenue potential for events. So thank you all for participating in the poll, and super excited to go through the chat later and see some of the other responses that came through for other. So now without further ado, let's take a look at the event maturity model. Before we dive in, I do want to clarify that maybe this doesn't hit home for everyone. If you're an organization that is solely focused on internal events, this might not be for you. But if you have a focus on using events as a way to drive new business for your organization or make your customers happy and want to do more with you, then this is for you. There are 5 key stages within the model that we'll talk through today. There are also 3 levels within each stage that go from activating to mastering. This morning, we emailed everyone here a guide that we launched today that digs deeper into each stage and the levels within them. So today, I'm going to try to keep it high level and walk through the stages and the big shifts that happen between the stages. It's also important to note that this is not necessarily binary. You can be in multiple stages at once and at different levels of maturity or adoption within each stage. We see this quite often, actually. You'll also notice a familiar metric that we just discussed on the y-axis, which is event ROI. The way we see ROI playing into this model is as you shift from being primarily focused on event-based metrics and lean more into business driving metrics like new business acquired and customer growth and retention, you start to move up the model. On the X or bottom axis, you'll see number of events. As you grow your events portfolio, you can move to the right on the model, but your data strategy, how you measure ROI, how you partner across marketing, sales, operations, and key business partners across your organization plays a role in moving you really up to that 3 through 5 stage. Okay, now let's move through the model. Stage 1 is all about increasing registration. The baseline for this stage is focusing on seamless, branded, and friction-free registration experience. The goal is to have a high registration conversion. As you mature through this stage, you introduce personalization. You could have a personalized registration experience based on attendee title, company, or registration type. Let's say you want to know the biggest challenges CROs are facing. So you add a question to your registration form specifically for guests who register with that title. Organizations that are mastering this stage are partnering with other teams like sales and customer success to align on questions to surface in the registration flow to add value to future conversations. Stage 2 builds off of stage 1. You're asking the right questions in your registration process to apply those insights in stage 2 to your attendee experience. What are the predominant titles of attendees attending your event? How did they answer questions you asked during registration to create content and experiences during your event that are relevant to them? Your insights don't stop at registration either. You gather data on the sessions your attendees went to, whether they're in person or digital sessions like we are today, what they engaged with, and you pass that data back to your sales and customer success teams to have meaningful conversations. Chris, I know stage 1 and stage 2 is often an area we see many organizations sit. Any good examples come to mind to you for an organization that fits within one of these stages?
Yes. Stage 1, stage 2, Swoogo comes to mind, especially circa 2023. There are many people in this event who may have joined us at our last Uncon, which is short for unconventional, our customer event, which happened last year in Portland. I would put us somewhere between stage 1 and stage 2 in terms of the maturity of that event. We were dusting off the cobwebs after COVID. We hadn't been in person for 3 years. And we were really focused on number of people in the room, getting a really seamless registration experience, capturing insights from those attendees. And then we measured the success of that event based a lot on NPS, some on revenue-driven metrics, but also really talking to people in the room and seeing what the feedback was.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it's kind of fun to plot our own organization on this model. And also, it's not bad to be in a 1 or a 2. It's actually really great. And having those different levels of adoption gives you room to grow within those stages. So thanks for that example. Now, as we shift to stage 3, this is where we really start to focus on 2 big things. The first is a shift towards business-focused ROI metrics. How are you using your events to drive new business for your organization or retain and grow current business? It's about having a strong relationship, and you'll hear me say this over and over again, strong relationship with marketing, demand generation, sales, operations, and customer success to make sure you are setting goals collaboratively. This is also where quality of attendees starts to weigh more heavily than quantity of attendees. Don't get me wrong, quantity is extremely important, but just last week, I met with an event operations leader that talked about how their webinars are seeing a high volume of signups, but they aren't converting to pipeline. They aren't winning any new business from their webinars. Now, not every event is going to convert new business immediately, but stage 3 is about setting goals collaboratively and having the tools and technology in place to measure these goals and measure event attribution. Having a CRM strategy and marketing automation solution is a strong signal of moving to a mastery level at this stage. If you've moved to stage 4, you've been able to prove the business value of your events. You've shown event leaders and other leaders at your organization how events can help you grow the business, and you've gotten a seat at the revenue table. Events are now a strategic pillar in your integrated revenue campaigns. Now, this might be a new term for some, integrated revenue campaigns. I'm used to integrated marketing campaigns, but this is a fun spin on how you can focus your marketing campaigns to really drive revenue for your organization. For instance, if you're launching a new product, your marketing team will run an integrated revenue campaign to launch that product and drive multiple offers or tactics around that launch. If events are a key pillar in your integrated revenue campaigns, you've made it to stage 4. Organizations who make it to stage 5 are looking at their events as a portfolio. They have different levels or different events for different audiences and can measure the overall effectiveness of their event strategy. They understand the goals and outcomes associated with different event types, and they may have a branded event portfolio. And they're making the shift to truly drive community and customer lifetime value through their events. Chris, I know Atlassian is a customer that comes to mind for stage 5. What's your perspective on what makes them a stage 5 organization?
It's a great question. I think one of the things that stands out to me about Atlassian's approach to events is just how closely integrated events are to overall company strategy. Atlassian's mission is to unleash the potential of every team. And so teamwork and collaboration is really foundational to the company. Their stock ticker symbol is actually team. And so when they think about teamwork and collaboration and in-person and digital collaboration, events are so central to the company's overall strategy that they've got their annual flagship event, which is called Team in Vegas in April, and then a portfolio of events around that really support different pillars of their strategy. So it's a great example of where the company's whole strategy is connected and tied into their events.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that stands out to me about Atlassian too is just their focus on building community and really building that kind of strategic partnership with the attendees that come to their events. And I know, Chris, you and I have talked about kind of how do you measure community, right? If anyone has a great kind of way to measure the ROI of community, this is an opportunity for us to absolutely dig in deeper. Because this is one I think, if you get that right, like that would be incredible. The goal is to really, use events to create a community. So great. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And now that we've made it through the model, I want to hone in on some of the big shifts that we see between the stages. I always love the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So I'm trying to keep it simple and make sure we're kind of honing in on some of those key shifts that we see within the model. So moving from stage 1 to stage 2 is all about personalization. Personalizing the registration experience to capture insights that can then inform your event content and attendee experience. Moving from stage 2 to stage 3 is a shift in measuring ROI. There's a focus on quality of registrations over quantity of registrations. And this involves a strong partnership with marketing, sales, customer success, operations, business leaders, and a data strategy that helps you back into showing that quality. Moving from stage 3 to stage 4 is about having a seat at the integrated revenue table. Events are seen as a strategic pillar in the go-to-market function at stage 4, and you have a clear picture of how events influence business and revenue goals. And then a leap from stage 4 to stage 5 is about having an event portfolio and using your events as a way to build community and become a strategic partner. So we're super excited to keep this conversation going. If you want to go to the next slide, we do have a QR code here for you to be able to scan and access that maturity model guide we launched today. It also should be in all of your inboxes if you've registered. We really want to encourage the discussion. We know we don't have all of the answers here, but we're hoping that this maturity model guide helps to create some really thoughtful and meaningful discussions amongst our community. So we're really excited to continue that. There's also a poll in the kind of Q&A area where you can choose to sign up for a kind of personalized overview of the maturity model. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to let us know, and I will do a personal call with you to go over it in more detail. So thank you so much for your time today. Chris, thanks for joining as well. And let's give it up for Nick Bennett, who runs field marketing events at some of your favorite brands and is joined by our Steph duo today. They'll be talking about giving your attendees a voice, which is kind of ironic because I can't hear any of your voices today. But without further ado, the next session is Give Your Attendees a Voice.